Welcome back. Today I'm going to be out with the Savage 110 Tactical. This model is actually in 308. The previous video was showing off the 6.5 Creedmoor I have. I got another rifle as well in 308 in order to do more load testing for the AAC ammo. But today I'm going to be going over how to bore sight and the initial break-in process. First, what you want to do, you want to get your rifle lined up so you can look down the bore after you remove the bolt and try to get your target as properly centered in your bore. There we go. Now you should be able to go up to your scope and try to match what you're seeing in your bore through your optic. There. Once you use your elevation and windage, get everything centered up, what you're seeing down range compared to what you're actually looking at through the bore. That will be a rough bore sight. Now with the XTR2, what you do is you loosen up your two screws up on the elevation knob, pull it up, and then retighten them in order to allow you to use windage, not your windage, but your elevation in both directions, because this optic does equip with a zero stop, so it'll turn all the way back to zero and won't go any farther. So if you have to have travel in the direction as to which it's going to be zeroed out, just pull it up, retighten it, so you can actually have your adjustment that way. What I do is I'll pull it up to almost the next mark to make sure I've got plenty of adjustment in the optic then in order to do the initial sight in. From there, next up, we're going to be covering initial cleaning. When you get a brand new rifle, the first thing you want to do is make sure you clean it to make sure any residual grease is out of the barrel before you start shooting. We are back. I've gone through and cleaned the barrel using first the Slip 2000 725 degreaser. I followed it up after that with a couple of clean patches, and I did 2 wet patches of the copper solvent. Followed it up with several dry patches to make sure that any copper residue was out. There was no blue residue at this point, so that's always a good sign. And then I followed it up after that with some Slip 2000 extreme weapon lube in order to not be shooting down a dry barrel, which is always recommended. Next up, I'll fire the first round, see where we got an impact on paper, and then repeat that cleaning process all over again. Obviously, I'm not going to video after every time I shoot for the first 5 rounds or so, because it's cleaning after every round. A little stiff. Okay, as I said, going to repeat the process. I'll be back after I've shot 5 or 10 rounds after shooting 1 round and cleaning. I have previously fired 8 rounds, cleaning the bore after every round fired. I am now going to progress up to shooting 3 rounds and then cleaning. is 3 rounds. What I'm actually shooting is Federal 7.62 by 5.1 MSR. The rifle here is chambered in .308, and so far I have had no issue shooting not 5.56, but 7.62 by 5.1 out of it. I could not find any information online through Savage saying whether or not they are compatible back and forth, but everything so far looks to be. Now, all my other ammunition I have is all actually spec'd out to .308 Winchester. So I'm pretty much just using this for the initial break-in process in order to have a more cost-effective round in order to do this, since you are looking at shooting around 20 rounds just to get your rifle broke in. Currently I'm holding about a 2-inch group at 100 yards with this 149 grain full metal jacket. So far it's been shooting pretty good. The first 3 rounds I don't really include those because they had about a 4-inch spread, but since it was the first time the rifle's ever been shot after cleaning, you can usually see the group slowly tighten up. So that is something to kind of look for if you do your break-in process. I'm going to go ahead and clean it up and fire 3 more rounds and basically do that until I finish off the 20 rounds that are in the box. These were the first 3 rounds that I fired when I was starting the fire clean. There's 5 more rounds up around the bullseye here that I cleaned after every round, and then I shot 2 3-round groups and cleaned. After that, I wanted to see how the gun was actually close to being like sighted in. So this was the first, well, not the first, it would have been the third 3-round group, I should say. That's about a 2-inch group there. This one down here is right around I'd say a little over 1.5 inches, and this will be the last 4-round, the 4th 3-round group I shot, if I can talk today. So all in all, I mean, you're looking at a 149 grain full metal jacket, so it's not going to be inherently accurate to begin with. But all in all, I mean, you're looking at about a 2-inch group here at 100 yards. This is probably close to like a 4-inch group, but you've got 11 rounds in there in that 4-inch group. So, and I'm not exactly trying to shoot off of the most steady rest up there. That table does move around a lot when you're trying to shoot, so that's going to come into a lot play here. Yeah, all in all, for full metal jacket, it's not horrible. At least I have a rough sight in for it, so I can go forward with shooting the different AAC rounds I have and see how they group out of it. Finally, I'd like to do a brief overview of this rifle. This is a Savage Model 110 Tactical. It is a 24-inch .308. The Savage model is 57007. This features, as I mentioned, a BA contour barrel, so there is no taper to it. It's got straight flutes, a threaded end that is 5/8 by 24, a 1-in-10 twist barrel. Coming back, it uses the AICS magazine system. These are 5-round magazine. The rifle originally came with a 10-rounder. It's got the oversized tactical bolt knob on it. The action is secured into a AccuStock, which has a full aluminum bedding system in it that mates the stock to the action. Also, it has 2 sling studs in the front. It also has a adjustable cheek piece system that has either two or three, I believe it's 2 additional cheek pieces you can put on to increase the cheek height, and then it's got spacers in the back here in order to adjust what your length of pull is going to be. Now, I might put a little bit higher cheek riser on it. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to keep shooting a little bit more and see how I like it in this configuration. What I used again to clean was, for my gun oil, was Slip 2000 EWL. The copper is a copper cutter by Slip 2000, and then the 725 degreaser. Now, both of these products are water-based, so definitely in the wintertime you want to make sure you don't have them anywhere where it's going to freeze. And they recommend, as soon as you're done cleaning them, you want to follow up any like metal surface with either one of their oil products or just some sort of a oil product afterwards to kind of help protect, since the other 2 are water-based. So you could have issues with corrosion if you do not do that. So definitely take a look at the solvents that you're using. And the other big thing that they mentioned was to make sure that if you're using cleaners, degreasers, and any kind of a copper solvent, powder solvent, anything like that, they recommend sticking with the same product family of company, so that way you don't have any issues with a possible chemical reaction that could happen, because one company might use something a little bit different than another company. Going back, the Savage model here does come with a 20 MOA EGW, just their standard Picatinny rail. I went away from the Keystone rings I had the XTR2 scope here mounted in, and went to a Warren low ring. Gets it to sit a little bit lower to the actual rifle. I don't really want that high of a scope over bore for like a bolt action, because it's not like a lot of your semi-autos will require it, but I prefer to have a scope lower to the bore axis of the rifle. And I mentioned in the 6.5 Creedmoor video that this was a 5x15. It's actually a 5x25. I got that wrong. This has got a 34mm main tube, 50mm lens. As I mentioned, it does have a zero stop, so I will have to re-zero these knobs. Basically, you just take your screws out, push it all the way down, rotate it to 0, and then lock your screws back together, and that will re-zero it. Same with this. You basically just take your screws out, get it centered back to the 0, and then lock that back in. And then this will be ready for any windage adjustments you need to make, and you'll have this zeroed back in, so you'll be able to make elevation adjustments. The reticle on this scope is a SCAR MOA, so it is a matched MOA reticle to go with the MOA adjustments for the turrets. I do like keeping all that stuff the same. If you've got any kind of like an MOA turret, I suggest going with an MOA reticle, so that way you're not trying to do some kind of a conversion from a mill reticle to an MOA adjustment system. Other than that, that's pretty much going to conclude this video. The next part I'm going to do after this is, of course, shooting the AAC ammo through this rifle just to see how it groups, if the accuracy greatly improves from what the previous video I did with it using my AR-10. Now, a thing to note here is the AR-10, I did not do a break-in process with the barrel. I very seldom do a break-in process with any semi-auto, because I mean, you're looking at something that is not going to be as accuracy motivated as opposed to function. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff, I want to make sure it functions properly, which you will end up taking a back seat if you're doing any break-in processes. So that could be some of the stuff as to why that rifle is struggling some with accuracy. But it could just be the AR-10 platform too, because they're not bad, but it's not like it's a precision rifle by any means. So again, that's going to conclude this video, and I'll go ahead and start getting ready for the next one.